So, academia, I think, is a very flawed institution, and maybe it's the best that we've come up with in our not so advanced society. But even as the best we can come up with, it suffers a lot of problems, and I think these problems are inherent with the human condition as well. And so I want to talk about that a little bit in this video. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. You are watching Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics, where we do go into these types of subjects sometimes. But anyway, up on the screen, we have a headline by express.co.uk, which Express.uk is one of the websites that I think a lot of us have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with. So they are bold enough to report on consciousness-related subjects, paranormal-related subjects. But when you look deeper, you'll find that all of it is designed just about getting clicks and stirring the pot of controversy, even when it's not necessary, just to arouse emotions and again get clicks, get revenue. But that's the way the press works. So you'll see them all the time release combinations of very good articles and then sometimes very sensational articles, but a lot of times flipping back and forth between skeptic and non-skeptic, which is okay. I get that, and that's, I appreciate different points of view being covered, but I sometimes feel that the way they do it is just sensational. Like, they're not doing it as, to provoke critical thought. It's more like get people's hopes up and then bring it down, be as sensational as possible. Say that's like, for example, near-death experiences proven as real, and then next article, near-death experiences debunked, not real. Then the next article, near-death experiences proven as real. So they continue this cycle all the time because they know it keeps people's emotions spiked, and then that's how they get hits. So anyway, up on the screen is the headline, Life After Death. Afterlife is plausible but very unlikely, claims a theoretical physicist. The possibility of life continuing after death through some form of heavenly afterlife is perfectly plausible, but there is no scientific evidence to back it up, a theoretical physicist has claimed. So now we can go into the details. I don't even, this is a Sean Carroll, a professor at the California Institute of Technology. So Sean Carroll is, he's actually a pretty well-known skeptic, I believe. So it is interesting that he's, putting his foot into the idea of an afterlife being plausible. And some people have argued, hey, this is progress, right? Because them saying an afterlife is plausible is a lot better than it being impossible. So this is like progress toward the non-materialist paradigm. But instead of like going too much into this article itself, I just want to talk about how academics are perpetually in a state of, I think, presenting information that is inaccurate and then doing it from a position of intense ego. And so it's so difficult to cut through that. So as an example, read the synopsis here. Perfectly plausible, but there is no scientific evidence to back it up. So we know that's incorrect. So we know that there is scientific evidence. This article itself cites, for example, like Sam Parnia's work, which is kind of scientific evidence, but really, if you want to go into scientific evidence, we can go into the Windbridge Institute, we can go into Gary Schwartz's work, Afterlife Experiments, that was his first book, I believe, which is about this subject. We can go into the physics models by Ron Pearson, we can go into quite a few different areas. And sometimes it's not like test tube science, but it is still scientific models. And then we can go into a much wider area of brain outside, mind outside the brain science. So Dean Radin, Sheldrake, these guys with scientific experiments to back up what they've done. And then, the core of afterlife evidence isn't this test tube science. The core of afterlife evidence is endless amounts of courtroom evidence. So highly verifiable testimonies and things that, you can't place these things into laboratories, but you can analyze and explore. And only cynics would dismiss it. And the people who hold the standard that evidence must be, quote, scientific to be valid, represents this kind of academic cynicism. So here's the issue. Now, I was reading recently, and I haven't read the books. Don't quote me because maybe it wasn't in the book, but I was listening to a discussion about the book Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. And this is a book that's basically about how to horribly manipulate the public to get your way. It was actually a favorite book by none other than Hillary Clinton, who wrote her thesis about it. Big surprise. And so it's a book on Machiavellianism. And somewhere in the book, apparently, and again, this is what I heard, but I haven't read the book, but it makes a lot of sense to me that the class of person who is the easiest to manipulate is the academic intellectual. And why are they so easy to manipulate compared to other groups of people? Because academics and intellectual types of minds, especially people belonging to, I suppose, the institutions, they are weighed down to an extreme level by their egos. So their egos, as well as the kind of the belonging that they have with academic institutions that provide them a sense of power and authority, are extremely powerful forces, and they're not easily swayed. So when the tides change, and there's an impression that the collective now believes XYZ, it's very easy for academic intellectuals to actually throw aside their critical thinking and what they're supposed to be advocating for, or their neutral, or what should be objective points of view, and have them side completely with whatever that the new way of thought is, which will keep their positions of authority. So it's very easy to manipulate them because they will fold very quickly to whatever the groupthink is, whatever the prevailing thought is in the academic institution, which will again keep them with that sense of purpose, authority, power, whatever it may be. And these are just very human flaws which most of us would fall subject to. Imagine if your status in life and your career, your money, as well as your sense of purpose and identity is all tied into your thoughts and how you're validated for those opinions. And when this happens, then you have all of this external pressure that is coercing you into following only a very narrow perspective that will keep you getting socially reinforced. And then everybody in that institutional setup is going to keep those ideas and locked into place, so that nothing threatens that equilibrium that they're in. So this is kind of a wordy, complicated way for me to say what happens is that groupthink prevails in circles of academics and intellectuals. And so there's this veneer of critical thinking and objectivity and just looking at the data and the facts. But in reality, I really don't think that there is much of that going on. And I saw this firsthand in university, where it just really seems like so many ideas are put out there just because that's tradition, just because that's the way it's done, and academics don't want to be challenged based on those things. And really, I felt so just kind of uneasy about that when I was going to college. Probably that's why I didn't go to grad school. It's why I decided I don't want to be an academic. I'd rather be a free thinker, or just somebody who, in this case, writes books or makes videos, talking on YouTube, blabbering away without credentials. Because in a way, it's almost like those credentials become chains that shackle you down. And then what happens if you are an academic who wants to be a free thinker, who promotes ideas outside of whatever the institutional box is? Then you end up facing this uphill battle. You end up like Rupert Sheldrake, who is continually at war with all of his peers, who do everything in their power to keep him pushed down and to attack his subjects on what really is more ideological than anything else. So those are just some thoughts I had tonight about that. And how it ties into the afterlife subject is that it is, we can very, very slowly see the doorway start to open a little bit, cracks in the narrative, more people becoming interested in non-materialist ideas like the afterlife. And I'm very hopeful about that. But we're always going to be seeing these same concepts, that there's no scientific evidence, or some latest academic coming out with some pet theory or trying to explain away near-death experiences, not seeing the forest through the trees, on and on and on. But it's I still feel optimistic, but really, this is why we see new paradigms basically being born outside of academia, outside of mainstream prevailing thought, because real thought leaders, real independent truth seekers, and the people creating new systems of thought, it doesn't happen in what's supposed to be the institution that's designed to create thought and keep modern systems going. And don't get me wrong, academics and modern science, have brought us so many miracles and amazing things in this world, and technologies that keep us all alive and safer and healthier. But there's just big, big issues in it as well. And nowhere is that more prevalent than in afterlife topics and metaphysics, where we see these biases the worst. Just some thoughts I had tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit that subscribe button if you like what I have to say. If you don't like what I have to say, well, you don't have to be here. You can hit that dislike button, I guess. But the subscribes really help keep this going. So does the notification bell. Help stay abreast of new videos. Or head to afterlifetopics.com. You can buy one of my books, like Understanding Life After Death, last year's The Afterlife and Beyond. Or get involved in our big Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/afterlife topics. The Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics group. It's big discussions all the time. You're welcome to join us on there for more on these types of subjects. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I'll catch you guys on the next video.